Okay. Excellent. Good morning, everyone. I am calling this meeting of the Public Safety Communications Task Force to order. It is 11:18 on July 27, 2023. I'm Barbara Neal, co-chair of the task force and executive director of the 911 board. As a reminder, the meeting's being recorded via Teams. It will be posted, the recording will be posted on the web page following the meeting. Let's start with our roll call of task force members that are present. I can see you all, so I'll just call out your name. Good morning, Paul.
Morning.
Morning, Ron.
Morning.
Good morning, Mike.
Morning.
And I am here, Barb Neal, as well. And also present, of course, is our administrative support person, Callie Audette. Morning, Callie. And Mandy Worcester is joining us from Department of Public Safety as well. And Philip, do you want to introduce yourself? You're muted.
You're muted.
Gosh, sorry. As many times as I've done these, I still forget to do that. Apologize. Good morning. My name is Phil Sisk. I am with Mission Critical Partners. We are an expert service provider headquartered in State College, PA.
Nice to see you. Thanks for joining. And I see Kim Cheney just joined. Kim, we're just doing roll call and introductions. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I'm Kim Cheney. I'm a longtime member of the Central Mount Public Safety Authority and various other government functions, and I'm really interested in the work of your committee and just listening in. I'm sure I'll be moved to comment, but right now I'm anxious to see how you're doing.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for joining. We'll move on to, for those of you who didn't hear, Commissioner Morrison is hoping to join us a bit later in the meeting. She had a conflict this morning with the governor's press conference. So we'll watch for her to join when she's able. So let's move to approval of the agenda and/or proposed additions. The agenda was distributed to task force members earlier this week. I am again going to defer that. Oh, maybe I'm not going to defer that. Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning. Sorry for being late.
It's okay. We just completed roll call and we were looking at the agenda. So I will mark you down as present.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Are you prepared to speak to the congressionally directed funding? Or I was about to move that on the agenda, but
I can give a brief update. It's not going to be a perfect update, but I'll be happy to give a brief update.
Okay, then. All right. Well, I'll let you catch your breath, and we'll just continue along with the agenda here. And I see we had one more member of the public. I believe that Stephen Whitaker has joined us. Is that correct, Stephen?
It is.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so approval of the agenda. We can disregard what I was about to say about deferring one item. Do task force members have any additions or changes to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we will work with this agenda. Let's go to approval of the minutes from the July 19th meeting. Those were distributed earlier this week as well, and also are available on the task force webpage. Is there a motion to approve those draft minutes from July 19th?
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
Ron. Okay, Paul seconds. Any discussion? Okay, I'm going to go so I can see hands instead of the voices. Paul, all in favor, raise your hand. Paul is a yes. Ron, yes. Jen, yes. Mike, yes. All set, Callie? I'm a yes. The minutes are approved. Next item is the congressionally directed funds discussion. And so Commissioner, maybe just let us know. Some people may
Sure.
need to know what that is and how it applies to this group, please.
I'll provide a really small historical look backwards and then sort of where we are right now. In 2022, I believe, the Department of Public Safety applied for congressionally directed spending, also known as earmarks to some people, from Senator Leahy's office to provide a funding stream that would further the previous path we were on towards a statewide emergency communication system. We applied and were awarded $9 million. However, it was awarded in a funding stream that is very difficult to make it match the needs that we had envisioned it for. So it came to us through the COPS technology grant stream, which does not allow for sub-grants. So anything that the money is spent on has to be owned by the state, which was not the path we had been on back before this last legislative session. And it also is not the path that we appear to be on now. So we have a preliminary, we've been going back and forth with the Department of Justice about ways, is it possible to get it out of that funding stream? The answer is no. We've received several extensions on the timeline to be able to spend that money. Or not to spend it, but the timeline to present a plan to them with a budget, a preliminary budget. And we have an extension until the end of August. We have some general ideas of how that money could be put to the benefit of all statewide while still coming through the state, just the state being the owner. But those ideas have not been fully fleshed out, and the meetings that were scheduled to get there to try and flesh it out had to be pushed back because of the flood. So I'm hoping that in the next 2 weeks, we'll get more clarity about what the desire is from our partners in fire, law enforcement, EMS, et cetera, about how that might be beneficial to improve the status of statewide emergency communications. So that's my update.
Okay, good, thank you. And I'm Act 78, I don't have it right in front of me, but it talked about the fact that the task force was to be consulted on the use of those funds. So I think, am I correct that consultation with the task force needs to happen after sort of these preliminary meetings that you just referenced? Is that?
It'll
the
probably
plan?
happen. Yeah, it'll probably happen all at once because a lot of the same stakeholders are in this group.
Right.
As we would be consulting organically. So I think it will happen all at once.
Okay. Are there questions? Paul?
Yeah. Is there danger that we might lose that money because of the tight time frame and
Maybe.
all the other things that we have going on in the state right now?
Well, we were originally told that the money doesn't go away unless we tell the government that we don't want it.
Okay.
However, we have, as I said, we've been going back and forth for months about the nature of the funding stream that it's coming to us through and the deadlines. We understood that if we missed a deadline, we would just get it in the next round of when they were opening up applications. However, the most recent feedback we got seemed to implicate that we have to at least have a project description and a high level plan, not necessarily details and final budget fleshed out by August 28th.
Okay.
Okay, anything else on that? All right, next item is the project management plan. Last week, the question came up of what are we doing about the project manager aspect of this work? And I didn't have a good update for you then. I did have a conversation with the commissioner between then and now. And so we've been focused on the development of the subject matter expertise RFP that we're going to be talking about in a little bit. during those conversations and developing that with the Agency of Digital Service and others, we were told that when the task force is ready for a project manager, that can be obtained through the Agency of Digital Services, ADS's retainer contracts. And we should be able to get that filled relatively quickly. I think the question then becomes, when do we want to do that? Or are we ready to do that now? And I'm going to stop here and see, Commissioner, do you have any more context to add to that?
Well, I think the relevant additional context is that that is a path that ADS recommended to us. But obviously, there's another path that we could choose to take as a task force, which is to put an RFP out specific for project management, not for the whole enchilada of inventorying the, equipment and the everything that's out there and developing a funding formula, et cetera. So the path that we are on currently is not a path we can't hop off and do something else. But our internal state team felt very confident that we could source a project manager if we felt that was necessary, but that we might not have that level of knowledge until we see what the responses to the RFP are and how the successful bidders structure their project team. So that was the advice we got internally. There's obviously a case to be made on the other side of that you want to hire a project manager first to help you develop the RFP for the subject matter expertise, et cetera. And so I think that's something that the task force should make a decision on today, if possible.
I'll just add here that I'm confident in the state of the RFP and the resources that we engaged with to get to where we are with that subject matter expertise RFP and the people that were on that team. So in my opinion, we do not need to hold up an RFP for the subject matter expertise we're going to need to get a project manager. And then, but we probably need to pursue that. And I guess I'll leave it up for discussion now on the best way to do that.
If we go the ADS route, does that mean that we're limited to project managers that they currently have on the retainer? Did I understand when you said, okay.
No, they have the ability to, they do have some folks on retainer, but they also have the ability to source new ones with special expertise if that's what we want.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions from task force?
So I have a quick one. So looking at the RFP, I definitely see there's a lot of complexity in what needs to get answered, obviously, and all these things that we need to do. Just Barbara, from your perspective, Jennifer, maybe from yours, since you do this much more frequently than I do, it would having a project, if we did both, right, it would having a project manager in advance. When I say do both, I mean like get a project manager on board and review, but would having that simplify the work for your teams that have been working on this when the responses come back, when we start looking at what the next steps are?
I mean, the direct answer is yes, it would simplify it, but I think we have sufficient capabilities in the internal state team to handle the response to the RFPs. I can take either side of this discussion and feel good about it, right? Like, I think there is something to be said for putting the RFP on the street, having the question and answer period, which is going to refine our thinking in many ways when we hear from industry about what their questions are. And then making the determination if we need a person who is independent of the people from whom we receive a response. To me, that's really the issue is, do we want someone who is our team captain and employed by us, as opposed to, do we want someone who is employed by the same person who is awarded all or portions, large, pieces of the task order to do the work? That to me is the question. Is there benefit to having somebody who is not an employee of the person the company that wins the bid, the rest of it?
Do you mind if I respond, Barbara?
Oh, I'd love to hear your
Go ahead.
response.
Okay,
Yes.
sure. So actually, Jennifer, that's that thought process of having that our team project manager working with the respondents team project manager. To me, I'm used to those processes. I see it all the time in the space that I worked in. I understand the value of having that. And when one of the sides doesn't have that, that's where, additional complexity, time, conflicts come into play. So I don't know I know we have time crunches and pressure here in the legislation itself, and I don't want to delay anything, but I definitely think, for everybody here, we all have other jobs, and having a dedicated project manager that's on our side, that's speaking our voice, adds a lot of value to what we are trying to do. So that's my perspective on it, if that makes sense.
So it becomes then a two question vote for the group. The first question being, do we want to have a project manager of our own? And if so, then do we want to put a separate RFP out for a project manager, or do we want to engage with internal state people on retainer, or others who could be obtained through existing state mechanisms? So I think we have to start with one before we get to the other.
So
I-
do we start with,
yeah.
go ahead, Paul.
No,
Okay.
I would agree with Mike that I think it would be beneficial for us to have our own team captain, as you referred to it, Jen, and I think the sooner the better. So if I don't know who would be available to us through the ADS retainer route. I don't know if we have somebody in mind already, or if there's not anybody currently in ADS's stable of people under retainer that we like, how we would go about having them seek out somebody that we find acceptable. But I think that would, to have that person on board soon would be beneficial.
Ron, you want to weigh in?
I had to find my mute. I think it would be beneficial for us to have somebody that is essentially working for us, for lack of a better definition. So I agree with that.
So here's where I'm not clear on the technicalities. I suspect we need to make a motion, second it, and vote on having our own project manager, and then move to the second question. So I will offer the motion that the task force should seek to employ a project manager that is separate and distinct from the scope of work described in the RFP for the subject matter expertise.
I'll second.
Was that you, Mike? Second?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, any discussion, further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Ron, is your hand raised?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Okay, so we have everyone voting yes. No one opposed? Question mark? All right, so that is approved, that we need a separate, as stated in the motion. So next question then is whether to go through the ADS route or issue an RFP. Do we have enough information to make that decision now, or what is it?
I would offer the following motion for consideration and discussion, that the task force authorized the chairs to further the discussion the task force authorized the chairs to examine available resources through existing state contracts and to engage in the building of a new RFP if there is not a viable candidate immediately available. So that I think we should look under the hood of what exists in state government before we commit to writing a totally new RFP. But it leaves Barb and I in the next 2 weeks before we meet again, the opportunity to look under the hood, but then immediately turn towards writing an RFP for a project manager if it quickly becomes clear that the right horse is not in the barn.
Yeah, I'll second that motion. That's a good motion.
Any more discussion?
No, I like to, by going this route, I think if there is somebody readily accessible through the ADS retainer route, that person could come on board a lot quicker than if we have to go through the whole RFP process. So no, I support that.
Yeah, that was the comment that I was going to make, Barbara, is the speed in which we can onboard somebody. The quality, obviously, experience and understanding of the type of projects that we're working on are all very important, but also taking into consideration the speed in which we can get somebody in that seat would be great.
Yeah, that obviously would save some time.
Excellent. And I lost track of where we are. We have not voted, correct? On this. That's why I need Callie. So, all right. So all in favor, again, let me call on Ron. Are you in favor?
I am.
Okay. Paul,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Jen,
Yep.
and Barb are yeses.
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. We'll get to work on that. You mentioned a meeting in 2 weeks, Commissioner. I was thinking we might meet in 1 week, depending how far we get with the RFP, but we can hash through that and bring back whatever information we have at whenever, we meet again. So, okay. Next item on the agenda is the stakeholder engagement plan. I put this on the agenda because it was brought up last week as well, I think by a member of the public, about how we plan to coordinate all these voices across state government and the different plans and the different work that's going on. How we plan to get that conversation going. And also, of course, we all on this task force represent certain constituencies, and we need to make sure that we are getting in my opinion, as many voices as we possibly can on this topic. So I wanted it on here as just really a placeholder. I'm not sure that we're going to come up with a stakeholder engagement plan in 5 minutes of conversation, but to be thinking about it. And I also wanted to just throw out there that the development and eventual implementation of a stakeholder engagement plan maybe could be part of the work of, I would lump it in the subject matter expertise RFP. And if we want to go that route, we're going to have an in-depth conversation on the content of that RFP in a bit. But those are my introductory comments and thoughts. What else is there to talk about on that?
Well, I think we all know we have to have a stakeholder engagement plan. I don't think we have anything to engage the stakeholders with yet. So it could be pushed a little. And as you said, it could be part of the responsibilities of our project manager or the SMEs. So I guess I don't have any further comment right now about that.
Anyone else? Task force?
I think I think it will have to be worked on by whether it's the project manager or the subject matter expert, I don't think we can rely on our own, like we have people assigned to this task force that represent a variety of different stakeholders, but as we're already seeing on meeting number 3, we're already running into a problem with a attendance. So to rely on our own task force members to reach out to their constituencies isn't going to be enough.
So-
Barbara, go ahead. Go ahead, Ron.
I think that, given the number of agencies involved in the stakeholder group, I mean, there are just 250 fire departments alone involved in this. I think that perhaps we can start that process by reaching out and trying to identify the correct the correct contacts within those organizations for us or our subject matter experts or our project manager to reaching out to acquire the information that we are going to want to compile and process. At least that'll move us a little bit further along and give them, get them thinking about who they want to be answering the questions for us. I think that would potentially be beneficial to start that ball rolling now or as soon as possible.
Mike,
Thanks, Barbara. I think that I'm agreeing with Paul here that having the project manager on either side lead the development of that is probably going to get us the best result. But I think our input is critical. You know, to Ron, I think there was Ron speaking. I don't remember. You know, making sure that I don't think we can let that wholly be created without our perspective on saying these are the groups that we think you need to talk to, and these are the pieces of the puzzle that are important to us as the team. But creating that ourselves, kind of to Paul's point, would be difficult without that project management piece. So,
well, does it make sense to take this part of the conversation back to sort of that exploration work that the commissioner and I are going to be doing on the project manager approach, and see where if it fits in the we could get the input too from, you know, the team at ADS, who's been very helpful. They might have thoughts on where that should go. And then
I think
go ahead.
I think we added to the scope of work of the project manager. It's probably totally to be expected, right? I don't think that would be a surprise to anyone who became a project manager.
Right. Okay. Okay, and I see Michael Wright just joined us. Good morning, Michael.
Morning.
We have just finished up the discussion on the agenda of the stakeholder engagement plan, just so you know where we are, which brings us to, if we're done with that topic for now, that brings us to public comment period, because we are planning to go into executive session following public comment. And so is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment? Please raise your hand or otherwise signify.
Steve Whitaker, but I don't need to go first if there's others.
Okay, I see. Yep, Philip, I see you. Philip, why don't you go ahead?
I just had one brief comment related to your discussion about the project manager, and I would I think you're on this, from my perspective, on the right path there of exploring current state resources, because I would just encourage you to get a good list, as you say, of the skill set that you're looking for, because I think a lot of that's what you're going to be looking for in that position. That skill set is going to be more about, as you said, doing your legwork, like reaching out to folks on the plan. You just talked about the stakeholder management plan, and in that kind of role, and dealing with the internal logistics of state agencies, a person from I forget the name of this entity there, Digital Services. A person from that agency would be more equipped and maybe better suited for the internal logistics that everything that's going to be going on there. So that was my one comment. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Stephen, go ahead. Stephen, you're muted.
Yeah, somebody muted me. I didn't mute myself. So if you're going to bother to mute me, please unmute me when I'm called on. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
So a couple things. ADS, I'm preparing testimony for the Joint Technology Oversight Committee. I think we're wasting valuable time by pretending that we could find what we need out of ADS. ADS has contracted to resulting in 2 statewide web outages in 2 weeks, getting rid of the mainframe right before DET needed it for COVID, one boondoggle after another. So I think it's a kind of a detour, a dead end, to think that we're going to have ADS is not this task force, and this task force should not abdicate any of its responsibilities to other agencies, especially where they operate outside of open meeting law. And, there's work to do, and this really is the task of this task force, to get a project manager. You're not going to be able to find a credible public safety expert who will have the experience and the gravitas with first responders and the skill set to talk to legislative committees and bureaucrats to get this project moving on time. We have a very tight deadline with a deliverable due in December, and there's so much work to do that I would think that we're killing a week or two going down a dead end, and that maybe you could concurrently explore ADS's pre-qualified project managers for their public safety expertise, but you should also put an RFP on the street and get responses. And I don't think that's a complex RFP to write. Pretty much, I suspect you've already drafted it, all the boilerplate in the existing RFP, and you ask them for how they would go about developing a project management plan and a public engagement plan. And that work gets done in those proposals. So I think that time is of the essence, and that you need to recognize that developing and getting approved pilot projects before the end of this year, as the law requires, if it's going to get approved, leaves probably 3 months of work for subject matter experts once they're contracted. And that's more than tight, so to speak. So I'd ask you to think about the parallel track, putting out an RFP based on existing language with a couple of inserts, authorizing staff to do that and voting it today, and get that out on the street. Similarly, I think the task force may or may not need to be involved, since it is spending money, in authorizing additional administrative support for the Department of Public Safety, to have somebody with some expertise on this helping to shepherd it. I mean, I appreciate the work that Callie is doing in keeping the minutes and the meetings and the recordings, but there's more work to do that clearly is not fair to rely on the co-chairs to do in addition to their other responsibilities. So that's let me think, one other thing on the agenda. Oh, executive session. I question whether executive session is appropriate. I heard one suggestion that you put the RFP out and let the proposed bidders help refine it. I don't think there's any competitive advantages lost or gained by anyone in doing that. In fact, they know how to do what we need done better than we do. And so the sooner we realize that and act accordingly, the faster we'll make progress. So that's probably enough for now.
Thank you, Stephen. Kim Cheney, did you want to provide some comment?
My comment is I'm really excited to see the progress that you folks are making. This is an impossible task, and I'm encouraged to see you're undertaking it in good spirits. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, so no other public comment, correct? All right, so that brings us to the RFP discussion. And the RFP, of course, is under development, and so it relates to a contractual or contracting matter, which is why we are considering an executive session. So I would entertain at this point, actually, before we go there, Commissioner Morrison and I did not have an opportunity to discuss this with you prior to the meeting, but I do have Jim Lipinski from the Agency of Digital Services, who has helped us develop the RFP to date. He is available to join the executive session. So I would like to invite him and also Callie into the executive session, and I'll put this on a motion in a minute. I just didn't want to surprise you. Is there anyone else that you see needs to be in the executive session?
No, I think Callie is, as a matter of course, I think she is part of the task force, so I don't think we need to specify her. But I would certainly welcome Jim's perspective, particularly if questions come up from other task force members that we don't readily have an answer to.
All
So
right, then.
you're probably looking for a motion, aren't you?
Yes, I can word it, or you can go ahead.
I would move that we temporarily end the public meeting. We move to executive session for the purpose of discussing an RFP. That in executive session that we add Jim Lipinski from the Agency of Digital Services to provide contextual information.
That's the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, wait, seconds. Callie, do we do any discussion on this part or?
No.
We don't. Thank you, Paul.
No.
Okay, all in favor? Ron, are you in favor?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And I
Michael?
see, I'm
Michael,
sorry,
are
Michael
you-
Wright.
Yes.
Are you in?
Yes.
Thank you. And I see everybody else's hands on the screen, including mine. So we will move to executive session. It's 11:55. Callie, would you forward the executive session invite, please, to Jim Lipinski?
It's
Okay.
James
I will.
Lipinski.
Okay, and I will also temporarily stop the recording for the main meeting and I will resume once we come out of executive session.
Okay,
Can I
thank you.
get a point of order? I don't believe you've done the executive session properly. It requires two motions based on the first one has to do with premature public knowledges.
Okay.
et cetera.
We
I-
moved to go into executive session for contracting. Go ahead, Paul.
I know what Stephen's talking about. I know at least at the select board level, we've been advised by the Secretary of State that prior to going into executive session, we have to pass a motion stating that we as a task force find that premature public knowledge would clearly place the task force at a substantial disadvantage, and pass that motion and then vote to go into executive session. But
Commissioner. what-
Sure, you
Wait.
can make the motion. You can make the motion, Paul, and we can take action on it. If
Okay,
we've done it in the wrong order, we'll do it better the next time.
yes.
So is the first motion withdrawn?
Sure, I can withdraw the motion.
Then I will
Got that,
move.
Callie?
I will move that the task force find that premature general public knowledge would clearly place the task force at a substantial disadvantage.
I'll second that.
Paul, do we have discussion on this?
You do.
Okay, any discussion? Michael Wright.
No, I was just voting agree.
Oh, okay. Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor? Michael, I saw you as a yes. Ron?
Yes.
Okay, and the remaining task force members on this call have their hands up. Now, Commissioner, would you like to make another motion?
Yes, I would like to reintroduce my previous motion as stated previously. Callie, could you read it back to the group?
I was not able to get it word for word, but let me,
It's on the recording.
yeah, let me get
I
the
can read-
transcript up.
Again,
Sorry
the
for the delay.
recording will be going while you're doing this.
The motion is to move to executive session. Oh, the transcript keeps moving. I'm sorry.
I can just start again. The
Yeah,
motion.
unfortunately, it won't allow me to find it. It keeps skipping to the bottom.
Okay. So my motion is to move to executive session for the purpose of discussing an RFP for subject matter expertise, and that we invite James Lipinski from the Agency of Digital Services to provide us with contextual information.
Second.
Okay. And now a vote. All in favor? Michael, I'll call on you.
Yes.
Ron Kumitz is a yes. I see your hand. And the remaining members on the screen are yeses. Okay. We'll see you in executive session.
Can I ask, how will you notify?
We'll come back into this meeting, Stephen, when we're done.
Oh, we stay in this meeting and you'll re-enter it?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.